In 1958, a group of volunteers came together with a single fire station and a shared purpose: to protect their community.
We took care of our mom and dads and our grandma and grandpas, and we did what we could.
That simple beginning would grow into something much greater: Bernalillo County Fire and Rescue.
The transformations we've seen, I mean, they're huge.
Over the years, the department has transformed from a volunteer force
I was here by myself for many years.
into a fully paid organization, now standing strong with 14 districts and more than 300 uniformed members.
To me, it's just amazing knowing where it came from, being part of where it came from all the way to today.
But numbers alone can't tell this story. The true history lives in the people, the men and women who answered the call day after day, decade after decade.
We spend holidays together. When they grieve, we grieve.
Until now, their experiences have never been gathered,
We didn't dump water on the roof, we just went inside and put the fire out.
never been told in full.
They said, if you and that kid in the door go into the city, you're dead, and I know where your family is.
Before memories fade, before voices are lost, we honor the past by listening to those who lived it.
Because of us, it's that they've got rules, because we didn't have rules.
Yeah,
really.
safety wasn't a consideration
Yeah.
back then.
This is the history of Bernalillo County Fire and Rescue, told through the eyes of the people who built it. What began as a scattered network of volunteer fire districts, built from house phones, hand-me-down equipment, and the dedication of local residents, slowly evolved into the modern department we know today. Guided by early leaders like the first volunteer fire chief, Anthony Santillanes, and fueled by community pride, each district stood on its own, with their own identity, building from the ground up and answering calls within their boundaries.
When I inherited the department, the records were a 5-foot stack of paper and a budget of $2,400 a year. When I retired, with all of the expansion we had and the obligation we had to the community, my budget was $1,000 a week.
But behind the transformation are the stories of those who carried the weight of change. Retirees who didn't just witness the evolution of each district, they lived it.
The county has 3 really unique and vastly different geographically challenging areas, being the North Valley, the East Mountains, and the South Valley. The North Valley is kind of a mixture of all of it. You've got really, really large homes in the North Valley, but you've also got very small homes. You've got trailer parks in the North Valley, similar to what you would find in the South Valley, but those could be in a neighborhood right next to a multi-million-dollar home, so it's different in that aspect. You do have a lot of industrial in the North Valley, but it's industrial in more of the manufacturing sense, as opposed to like chemical production that you find in the South Valley, which means you have to be more in tune with how high-end production works, such as General Mills, that's in the heart of the North Valley, and so on and so forth. You also have one of the main thoroughfares of the North Valley, Paseo del Norte, that crosses through that area. So you have a lot of high traffic incidents that could occur on that particular stretch of road, in addition to the actual interstate that is the farthest east boundary of the North Valley. So the north region of Bernalillo County has grown in the last year and a half with the addition of a new station on the Sandia Pueblo. The North Valley was the first to have 5 fully operational stations, which brings up the total number of individuals in the North Valley to about 26 firefighters that are on duty at any given time. One of the last pieces that we have to do is Station 36. Station 36, being the absolute oldest station in Bernalillo County, is the last to receive a little bit of love and care, and we had originally thought to try to do some remodel, but ended up deciding it was best to completely demolish it and relocate that station to a better location. It's set to open in June of 2026. The Station 36 will be the house of the first all-electric fire engine, not only in Albuquerque, but in the state of New Mexico. And we're anticipating that being delivered sometime in the new year, and seeing, how well we're able to make that transition to something that is vastly different than anything any of us have ever really gotten to explore. In the North Valley, it's also a little unique in that it has two areas that are ran off of either intergovernmental agreements or memorandums of understanding. So the Village of Los Ranchos entered into a memorandum of understanding in September of 2009, which basically the Bernalillo County absorbed all of the staff and equipment from the Village of Los Ranchos. In exchange, the Village of Los Ranchos compensates Bernalillo County to run all of their fire and medical calls in that specific region. A little different than the intergovernmental agreement that was put in place with the sovereign nation of Sandia Pueblo. That agreement basically states that Sandia Pueblo built a station and Bernalillo County has come in and is staffing it. We recently also became an ISO 2 in the North region from a 3. So ISO rating is what the state of New Mexico utilizes to determine how much pay is received by each respective fire department, career fire department, and volunteer fire department across the state. And it's based off of an insurance rating. So the lower the number, the more money that you receive from the state in state fire funds, and the better insurance rates the residents of that specific area, or in our case, North, receive on their homeowner's insurance, which is just an example of all of the hard work and dedication that's gone into making the department the best that it can possibly be.
My name is Robert L. Warwick. Was involved in the county fire department from its inception for 32 years. 22 of those I was a chief officer. And somehow, I don't know, the word got out, but they all got together and asked me if I'd be chief and run the fire department for them. And I said I'd give it a shot.
My name's Roger Tannen, and I'm retired. I retired as deputy chief of the department. I joined in 1985 in the summer. I was a Red Cross volunteer, and I was doing blood pressure checks at Windrock Knoll, and a gentleman came up to get his blood pressure checked. I was a kid, and he liked the way I communicated with him, and he liked the way I did his blood pressure. And he wrote down an address and said, "Come here on a Tuesday night. I think you'll like what you see." I had no idea what it was. I showed up, and it was a fire station. And I walked and knocked on the door, and he invited me inside, and I became a volunteer that night.
Jose Jaramillo joined as a volunteer and then went up the ranks and became chief.
Jim Tuma, I was Deputy Chief of Operations from 1996 to 1999, 2000. I was a volunteer with Paradise Hills in 1972 and was a paramedic firefighter from 1979 to 1984. For me, I go back to the early 1960s. My grandfather at the time, where the old fire station was off of Paradise Boulevard, we had one truck. It was the 48 LaFrance. There was a concrete pad that was behind the fire station, and they would light oil fires and fight these oil fires. And yeah, it wasn't real environmentally safe at the time, but that's what they did. I remember that.
Captain Gary Rowley retired, started in 1973 as a driver, District 7, and retired as a captain in 1993.
My name is Tim O'Brien, and I'm recently retired battalion commander with the county.
Hi, my name is John Standiford. I was a volunteer chief up in District 5.
Steve Andrews, retired captain, county fire.
Al Walder, district chief in Paradise Hills from, oh, I don't remember exactly when I got voted in, but there was about 3 or 4 of us that got county commission meeting got voted in. And enjoyed my time at it. When I joined the department, he was the first driver I worked with.
1980.
1997, 9,
80.
someplace.
Yep.
I think it's an island, really. I mean, that's
Yes.
that's what's so unique about Station 5 or 35 now. 35's always been this one that's kind of just held on, and because it was so far away, we had to survive on our own. And Mike Hand and yourself and those other paid guys that we had, they knew that they were going to be there a while until somebody else showed up, and you needed that help, and you were just happy to have somebody else show up to grab the line, or at least make sure you didn't get hurt, or bring you water to help you fight the fire.
Everything west of Tramway at that particular time was no man's land. There was nothing out there. And the structures that were in the Tramway area were a total of 40 homes. That was all. I don't know how many, there must be close to 1,000 up there now. But like I said, we're all relatively close-knit and knew each other.
The North Valley is a place where you're going to get more of your medical calls. And I will say that will test your brain. Medical calls are much more complicated than trauma calls.
The village of Los Ranchos created their own fire department in 1958 because of a situation of a fire in the village, and they waited for Albuquerque to come. Albuquerque responded with their truck and the water on the truck. They sprayed their water and left. So Los Ranchos, the fathers of Los Ranchos, decided they needed to build their own fire department, get a fire department started. You know, we started out in a tin building on Green Valley Road, that's when I started with them, and then we landed up with the building that's on Rio Grande now.
To me, I felt like it was home, and it was just it was a great place for me to be. I was out of town a lot, so it wasn't a real busy district, but it gave me an opportunity on the training side to get involved with the county and start to hook up with some of these guys on the career side of the other districts.
You know, probably the thing I hated worst about working up there was knowing people that you know, because Jim and I think maybe Al, we worked on so many people that we actually knew the residents up there, and some of them turnout wasn't that good. You know, I mean, and that hurt. But I think the fond memories outweigh the funny memories. Jim and I talk about them all the time. You know, and Gramps. Gramps always stayed at the station. You know, I don't ever remember him going on a call with us. You know,
No.
Yeah, he manned the radio and he did what he had to do, and but it was fun.
I have to agree with them. It's the ones that were close to you that you didn't really realize how close they were, because we were really a close-knit community and this and that. And there were different things that we did that either brought us happiness or brought us sadness. And I think everybody felt a little bit different after we come back from let's say a good call as compared to a bad call.
Yeah.
Everybody, really, really felt it, but you weren't alone. In other words, you weren't singled out of you feeling bad. Everybody felt bad about it, or everybody felt good, which was a close knit of that district at that time. And I have to believe that the other districts had their certain camaraderies too. And
Well, the fire service, I think it's all about camaraderie anyway, the brotherhood.
yeah, I think it showed. And it showed if you needed anything, they were there.
It's fun. It was fun. I tell people all the time we rode on junk, but there were 15 of us hanging off of it, and we did it for free. We came and we did what needed to be done. We took care of our mom and dads and our grandma and grandpas, and we did what we could. We We were firefighters, we were EMTs, we did whatever needed to do. Get the dog out of the ditch, parrots out of the trees, you know, all that kind of goofy stuff that nobody would do these days.
My wife, Donna, she joined the fire department and moved into the office. She did such a good job of keeping the books on several of the departments that Lawrence Sanchez tried to hire her to work in the county finance department, but she didn't want to go down there. So. But we had a lot of help from the county people.
District 1 was a great place. When I first started in 1985, it was an all-volunteer department except for our paid driver that we had. Gil Sanchez was our paid driver at the time, and he worked 7 to 5 during the week, and the rest of the time was just the volunteers. And when I started, the department was very diverse, which I really liked. There were an equal number of women to men, and I would have put any of them up against each other in a fight any day.
When I did it on my own pickup, and all my volunteers did it on their own pickups, and the county chiefs did it out of their pickups or cars or whatever. You know, you went to anywhere you went, your bunker gear was in the back seat. Back when I was doing it, we carried plectrons. But you know, you carried this thing into JB's or wherever you went to go eat, just like, you know, the guys wear pagers now. That was the radios and that technology that came along. You know, and then the trucks, of course. The trucks just keep getting more and more technical.
We went from 30 calls a year right after I became chief. Our number of calls that we were answering were up to around 600. So we started to put an EMS system together, got a doctor that was going to work with us, and we got ready to start the school. So I looked around to see if there was anybody in the state that ran an ambulance or an EMS service, and I found out that the only one around was Jemez Springs, New Mexico. So I went up there and asked them how they got their truck. They said that the GSA had a whole bunch of the trucks they bought for the hotshot crews, and they had some extras, and they got it through a grant. So I did the same thing, brought it down, and we took it over to Almo Wood's body shop on 2nd Street, and he did all of the modification on it and the printing for free. And so that's how we got into the EMS service.
I was working at Station 5 when one of the assistant fire chiefs, Tommy Richardson, who later became the fire chief, he came up to the station and said, "We're starting a paramedic program. Do you want to sign up?" And I was just like, well, how hard can it be? I was never very good academically in all of my educational career, which was up through high school. But for some reason, this was different. And I graduated and went on being a paramedic with the county fire department for 23 years. And I feel a lot of pride in the fact that I was in the very beginning of pretty much EMS in the United States.
As emergency medical services took root within the fire department, change was on the horizon.
You know, when you have volunteer people, you get a lot of information that you don't have to pay for. But the thing you have to do is you have to talk people into giving one of their most precious things, and that's their spare time.
What had long been an all-volunteer force was evolving to meet the growing needs of its community. To provide faster and more reliable service, the county began introducing paid positions, a gradual step toward a new model of public service. In 1972, Mark James Valdez from Station 2 became the department's first paid driver, marking the beginning of Bernalillo County Fire's transition from a volunteer department to a combination department. It was the start of a new era, one built on the same spirit and dedication and community that had defined the department from the very beginning.
As Bernalillo County's fire department grew, it eventually became a single department rather than 11 different fire districts. I think it had a very good foundation to create a very forward-thinking fire department.
If you go back to the volunteer system when it started, and if you look at today's firefighter, the certifications that are required now, the national standard, not just, okay, today is Wednesday, 7 o'clock, we're gonna have the insies and outsies of a pump. It don't work that way no more. Drastic change in the process of the incident command system. All these things that really, if you think about it, we didn't implement any of that stuff back then. We were what we called freelancers. There was no regimented process on how we dealt with situations, whether it be a motor vehicle accident or a structure fire or a hazardous material incident. We didn't even know what that was back then, hazardous material incident. So I look at it over the last 50-some years, look at the certifications and the process that a new firefighter has to have before they can even go out in the field and do anything. It's significant. We did that here in the county.
It was a unique opportunity. We only had one career person. Steve had been there and left before I got there. Mike Hand was the career person when I arrived. And to be able to work with him and just the opportunities, and the first time I'd been in a system of both career and volunteer, and it was totally new and different the way that system worked, and it was a challenge I think for all of us on both sides, being that there were volunteers that were in chief positions and in command positions over career people who many were also union, and so it was a very challenging ordeal to go through when you were taking commands as a union career firefighter from a volunteer, and it gets strained at times. It took a lot of discussion and cooperation to make that system work.
The transition from a volunteer service to a combination, and eventually a fully paid department, was not without controversy. Newspaper articles from the early 1990s show that the change created significant uncertainty. For many volunteers, it meant redefining their place in the department they had helped build. Tensions grew between the volunteers and the fire chief at the time. The volunteer chiefs felt that the fire districts were being stripped of all powers, and that this move would crush the volunteer system. Chief Jerry Lambert, however, argued he was advocating for clearer structure, particularly regarding financial operations. In 2011, the department officially became fully paid, ensuring full-time coverage and professional standards across the county. But this milestone was built on the foundation laid by those early volunteers, men and women who gave their time, their skill, and their hearts to a cause larger than themselves. So in September 2009, when District 12 Los Ranchos merged into Bernalillo County, what were your initial thoughts and feelings?
I was gone by then, but my thoughts were good for them, because all we ever were was a training station. Later on, as chief, we started to get some paid positions and paid people. Well, those guys were always going to be a firefighter. There was no place for them to go. So, you know, I was happy for them, get them a chance to join Bernalillo County and move on up.
I think that's why District 5 held on so long and had so many volunteers that stayed around as long as we did, is because of the family environment that we had there. And a number of us went on to be in the paid department from Station 5.
But we had some really good talent that came to us that the county couldn't have bought it, but they came in and gave it to us as volunteers. We got written up in several of the fire periodicals in the Firehouse Magazine wrote about a 6-page article on us being the most aggressive inside firefighters that they knew of. And I told them the reason it was is we didn't have a water system. The only water we had was what we took with us in tankers, and we had to put the fire out with that, or we didn't succeed. So it made us good interior firefighters. We didn't dump water on the roof. We just went inside and put the fire out.
So you know, you'd have hydrants within 600 feet of each other. They would, the radius would cross. But when you went to lay down the road, you were 1,400 feet. You never had enough hose on the truck to lay a hydrant. We still hauled water. You know, we had mutual aid with Bernalillo County, and you know, and if we got something big, we knew where we needed water, and we would get tankers from District 5 all the way up at the crest or up on the end of Tramway. You know, we would get them rolling because we did a lot of water shuttle. We hauled a lot of water.
It really, you know, the pain in the butt was really, we had a fire phone system, which I think every district at that time had back in the early days before we had a dispatch. And you'd have to, the system was set up where maybe 6 or 7 people in the district would have these fire phones. Well, you'd have to let it ring 5 or 6 times before anybody answered. And that was fine during the day, but at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, when we had little kids at home, obviously it didn't make for a happy family life.
And our phone number was listed in the front of the phone book. And then several of the businesses had automatic dialers that if their fire alarm system went off, it would dial our number. And 5 of those ladies, they couldn't go grocery shopping without coordinating that somebody had to be with that phone 24 hours a day.
We got a call one night. They had a large fire going into Bosque in the South Valley. And we were listening to the radio traffic, and they called us out. And we immediately went into a lot of laughter. It's like, why would we be going to a Bosque fire? We don't do that. And we actually went down in our Class A pumper, made our way to the South Valley, and they told us where to turn, on which roads to get down there. We weren't familiar with the area. We could see the smoke, we could go glow of the fires after dark by the time we got there. And so they told us to get on this dirt road along the river. And I don't think we got on the right one, but we went until we found a food truck. And so we stopped there and it had donuts. And there was another South Valley pumper there. There was a supply line going off of that pumper into the Bosque and out of sight. And that thing was running high on its RPM. So we kept looking and thinking, well, whoever's in there, they're doing something. Because they were moving water and the supply line was laid out. Eventually they came out, just the firefighters. And they were blackened up with the smoke. They were tired and they came out and said, did you save us any donuts? We said, yeah. Well, that time one of the chiefs rode up. I couldn't even tell who it was. He was a command vehicle. Wanted to know what we were doing besides eating donuts. We said, well, we're here. We don't have an assignment. He said, follow that fire hose to the end and fight fire. We had full structural gear. Started through the Bosque. That hose, we expected it was off of the truck, would be 150 feet maybe at the longest. We figured it was about 400 feet in. They kept adding hose onto it. And it was over trees, under trees. We were on our stomach crawling. We finally get to the end of this hose, and it's opened up on a fog stream. There's no fire there, but it's opened up and water's flowing. So we sat there a while, and it was so thick we couldn't move, and decided, like, well, what do we do now? It's like, well, we're not, well, and firefighters, we're clueless. And the fire kind of came back in and it roared over us, close enough. It scared us pretty good. We were able to use that water to protect us, and it just moved by fast. We sat there now, we'd been in there about an hour. I thought, it's time for us to go. So when we left and came back out, one of the chiefs in the South Valley was there. He goes, you boys been in there fighting fire? Yes, sir. Yeah, we got it knocked down. He goes, did you roll up that hose? No, sir, it's not ours. So whose is it? We don't know. The truck it was attached to when we went in is gone now. I said, I guess they figured out we were coming out. That truck left. She said, what do you want us to do now? He goes, well, you guys sit here to get another command. We sat there several hours till they finally told us it's over with. And we went back up to 5. So we've been to one of those bosky fires, but our contribution was very questionable.
You'll be talking with Chief Don Naylor. Chief Naylor walked into a hornet's nest, basically. This happened in 73?
73, yep.
About July or August of 73. The city was having some union issues. I was at Paradise Hills as a driver, only one person up there. I get a phone call from Chief Naylor mid-morning, and he says, I want you to, and Jim came down, got out of school, and he came down and helped me, I guess. Anyway, he wanted me to cover up all the emblems on the fire truck with cardboard. Which,
48 La France.
Yeah, the city had been on strike for maybe 2 weeks. They'd been manned, their stations were manned, and this has been 50 years ago, so it may be a little hazy, but they were manned by their chief officers, their non-union members. They just were so burnt that they had a time that they were just going to walk out. The rest of them were just going to say, we're done. Well, that's when everybody got up in arms, and Chief Naylor got me, and he says, I want you to bring the little France down to 2400 Broadway. He says, I want you to come down, put the cardboard on the emblems, and we're going to be stationed there until the city decides what they want to do. So I did like a good little, firefighter. I get the stuff and get down there. We sat there till, late 10:30, midnight, somewhere around there. And we're just about ready to go home because the city was going to come back. Well, we get a call downtown on Lomas, off of Lomas and Forester Street. And we're going down the street. And let me digress a little bit. We had threats made to us from outside sources. I had a police officer in his vehicle behind me, alongside of me, in front of me when we were going to this call. And we're rolling down Broadway from 2400 Broadway. And I turned the corner on Lomas. We start seeing a little glow in the sky and didn't think much about it. But then we get closer to this street that we're going to turn on, Forester, and it looked like my first impression, the whole block's on fire. And we get there, and I had a police officer there with me, had a police officer at the hydrant, because we had actual threats, And so we were there most of the night, if not all night. And I'll never forget, we're coming across the Rio Grande Bridge, and that old little France had doors. It was a convertible, and the doors are flopping open, and we were both, I had one of the chiefs, Tom Lett, was with me, and volunteer chief. And, we were coming across the bridge, and we parked that truck, and we walked away from it. But, yeah, and then we just left it. We had volunteers manning the stations, because, like I said, it goes back to the threat thing, that somebody was going to do harm to us. But, and that's been 50 years ago. And people either try to avoid it or talk about it. And for me, it was an experience. That was my first major, because I'd only been in the department maybe 6 months, but the chief made a decision that he was going to bring Paradise Hills down there, and there was a least run state. I mean, the volume of calls we had up there was fewer than all the other districts, so I think that was his justification. But we still talk about it. Yeah, that was quite an experience.
We put on the program of the Man in the Mask because we've gone into fires where kids were hiding in the house, and they were afraid of seeing this thing coming at them in this suit with this thing on. So we started that program of the Man in the Mask, and it paid off. I had a policy when we went in to search a house. Everybody had to have a crescent wrench, a screwdriver, a couple of door stops, and some chalk in their bunker gear. And as they went into a room and searched it properly, including getting one on one side of the bed and one on the other and joining hands and making sure nobody was under the bed and looking for kids. Then they'd put the door stop in, leave the door open, and mark the bottom of the door with the chalk so that the other groups that's doing the same thing wouldn't try to search a room that had already been searched.
My fondest memory was really, we moved here and the wife and 3 kids, we moved here from the Chicago area in 1979. And I think before we had furniture in the house, I joined a department. It's meeting the people and being accepted.
It's a very tight community.
As a new person coming in and being accepted, and I felt comfortable. You know, it wasn't like, oh geez, here comes another new guy type thing, but I felt comfortable in it, and that makes a big difference, I think, in anything if you're comfortable doing it.
It was family, because I mean, when I came in '87, you know, John was already there. He was our training. He was teaching stuff for us, and you know, he was the old guard in my eyes, and teaching me all these things I didn't know. So my whole family was in the department. There was 4 of us. So when we rolled out of the house as a volunteer, and the neighbor guy, Gary Williams, he was there. We all had to get 4 people in the van to beat Gary Williams out onto the street, or we wouldn't get to drive the truck.
When I was in the military, I'd come home from leave, I'd volunteer.
Yeah, he was always with me when I was driving.
And yep, when he was the driver.
I would, we'd have a big fire at night. There'd be cleanup afterwards. And the next morning, Jim would stop by on his way to school, and he never made it past the station. I'd call into West Mesa High School as his dad, and it was
we'd clean and roll hose
and do whatever all day, and up until about 10 years ago maybe, his dad never knew that took place. but yeah, Paradise Hills was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I think one of the best things about 5 that we did up there was the annual Christmas drive around with Santa Claus. We had chairs that were custom made that went up on top of the fire trucks, and we would send out 3 different trucks out for the entire day, and candy canes. We gave out candy canes, and that was a big way for us to raise money. Actually, people would come out, they'd give you either food or they'd give you envelopes for donations, because we were still volunteer.
When I was in high school, I didn't, 16 years old, I guess, my grandfather wouldn't let me go on too many calls, but I always got to work the radio. And so we had I think it was a brush fire or something. It was like late at night. And so he gets on the radio and says, you know, engine 7-1 is returning to quarters. And I got on there and I said, 10-4, Gramps. And everybody just busted my chops for that for the rest of my career. But that was a fond memory for me, was working with him. I mean, I learned everything from that guy.
It was a big part of my life, but I got to the point that I was getting too old to fight fire all night, go home, take a shower, put on my suit, and go to work.
What you see on TV, what you think the job is probably 180 degrees off of the truth. You're seeing saving the community, doing it in front of cheering crowds, expecting everybody to love you, and you probably will be respected, but that's not what the job is.
There's so many opportunities. So much training is required. I think you've also got to have a special mindset, because I know personally, and I'm sure Jim and Al does too, that there's certain people just can't handle it. They think they want the glory and all this, and that's not what it's about. You've got to have that mindset that you want to try and help people, or else we wouldn't have done it for over 20 years. But probably the thing we wish we would have done was write a book, you know, of a journal. And that's what we tell the the cadets when we talk to them now to write little things down, because it's going to come back, and as we get older, the stories may get a little different. You know, the truth may get a little stretched, but yeah, there's so many, you know. And if I was 20, 25 again, like I was when I started, I'd do it all over again in a heartbeat.
I get asked a lot from young adults who are looking for a career in the fire department, where should I go work? And I always refer them to Bernalillo County Fire Department.
I'm proud, basically, you know, having been a part of.
You were on the ground floor too.
Bringing things in and starting things and getting in, and then carrying on with some of the maybe foolish things other people thought, but we were instrumental in getting started. That worked out for people, that helped it progress, that helped it build itself up to make it what it is today. And like I say, I think these guys too are just really proud to be part of it. And that's really sticks in my mind.
Even though we understand the community doesn't really understand what we do, they're not interior fires with us, they don't know what we see and what we experience. It's knowing that the huge majority of them are extremely supportive of us, and that makes the job worthwhile.
One of the things I'm very proud of, that in my 22 years as chief, I never gave an order that got anybody killed or hurt.
One of these days, these trucks are going to go to these calls by themselves. That's not far off. That's what I want to see before I go to the big firehouse.
I watch social media, I watch the news, and when I see Bernalillo County Fire Department, I know I can be proud of those people and what they're doing.
For me, as being one of the first paid drivers, to see it when we only had 11 people, paid people in the department, and to see it now where there's over 350 or so in the department, and the accomplishments, the certifications like Jim was talking about, the being internationally certified, recognized, and being only one of 3 departments in the state with that certification, the quality of training, because we're involved with the cadets, and the quality of personnel that they have now is just, wow. It makes, to me, it makes me very proud to see where it was and where it is. And we need to maintain that momentum, because it's changing so quick.
My name's Chris Hohen. I'm a battalion commander. We said no 2 calls are the same. Every time the tones go off, you're like, what are we going into? We don't know until we get there and investigate. And there's the river. We have the Water Rescue Task Force out of Station 31, and they have an airboat, and then different times of the year, like during Balloon Fiesta, they get little quads, like side-by-sides, and they can go patrol the bosque. So, that to wildfires, lost hikers, and then structure fires. Those are the big ones. That's why people join the fire department, is they want to go fight fire. The transformations we've seen, I mean, they're huge. We do a lot more stuff with technology, which is great, because when I came in, everything was paper forms, and you couldn't imagine how tedious that was after, an EMS call, having to come back, you transcribe everything on a piece of paper, then you had to come input it. I mean, just the fact that people have had the foresight to say, this is where this, industry is going. Let's make sure that we're moving forward with, the technological stuff. The equipment we've gotten, anything from like the auto pulse that we can use on cardiac arrests, or like now we're up to the LifePak 35s, just constantly getting money, getting, the information and saying this is what helps people. Really, to me, a lot of it used to be, older stations, older fire trucks. So now it's like we're getting these beautiful, red and black trucks. We're getting new equipment. Protocols are changing. We're being held to this higher standard of what other professional departments have.
Next, on Through Their Eyes, the history of Bernalillo County Fire and Rescue. The mission doesn't end in the north.
The real unique value, I think, to the South Valley is the community here, the sense of culture and community within the South Valley, the yearly South Valley Pride Parade.
That sense of community has shaped generations of firefighters in the South region.
I got there and it was a flame from one end to the other, and it was an all-day thing, putting that thing out. I learned a lot about dodging aerosol cans that are exploding and stuff like that.
And for some, the calls and the memories never disappear.
They found him, scooped him up, told me he was livable, and they were taking him for a check in the hospital.
We spent holidays together. When they grieve, we grieve. I miss